I drove 9 hours through a snowstorm with a cake in my lap and hope in my chest just to surprise my sister at her engagement party. But when I walked in, they all looked at me like I was the storm. Nobody smiled, nobody hugged me, nobody even said my name. I wasn't on the guest list. I wasn't part of the slideshow, and by the end of that night, I realized something. They hadn't forgotten me, they had erased me. My name is Harper Ellison, I'm 29 years old. I design wedding stationery for other people's perfect moments, but this is the story of how my own family made me feel like a gatecrasher in a life I helped build, and how a cake I brought out of love became the last thing I ever gave them. Tell me something, have you ever been treated like a stranger in your own family? Ever walked into a room and realized you were only invited to be ignored? Share your story in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for the next chapter. Because the snowstorm was nothing compared to what happened after I stepped inside. Fiona was always the favorite. Even when she wasn't trying, the room tilted toward her. She smiled and people softened. She stumbled and someone reached to catch her. I spoke and someone changed the subject. Growing up, I used to think I was imagining it, this invisible wall between us. Maybe if I tried harder, talked less, smiled more. But the truth was, Fiona didn't need to do anything to be loved. And I couldn't do enough. I left home at 17 with a suitcase and a scholarship. Nobody came to see my dorm. Nobody helped me carry boxes up the stairs, not even Mom. She gave me a tight hug at the curb, whispered, "Make us proud," and drove away without looking back. Still, I kept trying. Birthdays, graduations, promotions. Every milestone, I'd text the family group. I'd post the photos, I'd invite them. Silence. But when Fiona got into that yoga studio's promotional flyer, a full paragraph in the family newsletter. So when she called to say she was engaged, I still smiled. Not because I felt included, but because it was Fiona, my baby sister, the girl I once carried home from the park after she skinned her knees, the one I helped rehearse for her high school auditions, the one I gave my first paycheck to so she could buy her prom dress. She didn't ask me to come to the party. She just sent a link to a wedding site, a registry, and a note that said, "Big night this weekend. Hope you can tune in online." Tune in like a live stream, like a stranger. So I made a decision. I wasn't going to be a name on a forgotten email thread. I wanted her to see me. Not to cause drama, not to interrupt, but because I wanted her to know I still showed up. So I ordered the strawberry champagne cake. She once said was her favorite. Handmade 3 tiers. Sugared violets. Gold script across a fondant ribbon. To love to laughter to forever, I paid rush fees to have it made that morning. Packed it in the back seat with a seatbelt over the box, like it was sacred cargo. I left Chicago just after dawn, my city shrinking behind me as the sky turned gray. Snow started before noon. By the time I hit the interstate, it was whiteout conditions, but I kept going. I stopped once for gas and bitter gas station coffee. Changed into heels in a restroom stall, the floor still wet with meltwater. My coat was soaked by the time I stepped back out, but I whispered to myself, "This is worth it. She's worth it." 9 hours later, my tires crunched over gravel, crusted in ice. The estate was massive storybook, perfect gold lights, twinkling over iron gates, music echoing faintly from inside. I remember thinking, this is going to be unforgettable, and it was just not in the way I thought. As I stepped out of the car, cake in my arms, the valet blinked at me. "Are you catering?" he asked. I laughed polite. "No, I'm family," but that's when it hit me. Even the strangers knew I didn't belong here. The warmth inside the estate hit me like perfume, vanilla roses, toasted sugar. But the chill I brought in from outside didn't leave my bones. I stepped into the foyer holding the cake box like a peace offering. No one looked up, or maybe they did, and looked away. Women in pastel gowns whispered behind fluted champagne glasses. Men in tailored suits drifted past, their eyes sliding over me like I was a misplaced coat rack. Then I saw her, Fiona. Blush silk gown hair curled to perfection. Laughter spilling from her lips as she leaned into a groomsman's whisper. Until she saw me, her smile faltered, then dropped completely. "You actually came," she said, her voice tight. I nodded, trying to keep the cold from my tone. Drove all day, surprise. She didn't reach for the cake. Didn't step forward, just stood there blinking. Like I'd ruined the symmetry of her evening. "I didn't think you'd, Make it with the weather. I gently placed the box on a side table next to trays of macarons and sparkling meringues. Well, I did. You're getting engaged, I wouldn't miss it. A beat passed. Then one of her bridesmaids, Mallory, I think, leaned in. Whispered just loud enough. She wasn't on the list, was she? I felt my spine straighten. Fiona didn't correct her. She didn't say anything. Just gave a tight smile and mumbled, "I'll be right back." And then she was gone. I stood there alone like a misplaced centerpiece as people flowed around me in pastel-colored waves. Near the fireplace, I found my mother, dressed in navy satin and pearls. She greeted me with a kiss that didn't land Harper. "You made it," she said, voice brittle. "Just please don't make tonight about you, okay? It's Fiona's moment." "Of course," I replied, and when she glanced at the wet hem of my coat and frowned, I just smiled. The kind of smile you practice, not the kind you mean. I wandered deeper into the grand hall. Framed photos lined the walls, engagement portraits lit soft with string lights. Not one had me in it. By the dessert table, I heard giggles. "Drama magnet," someone said. "Every family's got one." Maybe she thinks this is her rehearsal dinner. I didn't turn around, didn't correct them. Just made my way to the coat room, dropped off my jacket. Tried to breathe inside. I saw an ornate tray labeled bridal party gifts. 10 identical boxes, sparkling jewelry, handwritten notes. None with my name. I sat down on the bench beside them. My hands folded in my lap like I was waiting for a bus. Not recognition, and then my phone buzzed. A group text thread, Fiona's bridal party. I wasn't meant to be included. But maybe someone messed up, or maybe the universe decided I deserved the truth. One message jumped out, sent earlier that day from Fiona. "She doesn't fit the look. We'll say the list was full." My throat dried. The corners of my eyes stung. I stepped back into the hallway air, thick with violin music and rose-scented shadows. For a moment, I just stood there, staring out at the snowbanks beyond the window, trying to feel anything other than this rising, choking heat in my chest. This wasn't a mistake. It wasn't miscommunication. It was a plan, a clean erasure. And I was the ink they forgot to blot completely. I almost left then, almost turned and disappeared into the night, but something kept me there. Some small, stubborn hope still curled inside my ribs, that maybe someone would notice, that maybe someone would care. I didn't mean to take the wrong turn. I was trying to find the bathroom, a place to breathe, to cry, to collect myself. But instead I ended up in a narrow hallway behind the kitchen. Fluorescent lights buzzed above me, rolling carts lined the walls. The scent of rosemary and industrial bleach clung to the air. And then I heard it. Laughter. Familiar. Too familiar, I stopped moving. The voices were just around the corner, Fiona and Mallory. Their tones were light, drunk on champagne, unfiltered. I held my breath. Then I heard my name. I still can't believe she actually drove here. Mallory said, a smirk folded into her tone. Fiona's voice answered, syrupy sweet, 9 hours. Through a blizzard. "For what, a pity cupcake?" Mallory snorted. Honestly, would have been quieter if she hadn't made it. And then Fiona, my sister. My blood chuckled. Low, cruel silence would have been peaceful. The laugh that followed was sharp. Practiced, like they'd rehearsed it. I didn't move, didn't blink. If I moved, the pain might hit harder. I turned slowly, quietly. Back down the hallway, back past the coat room, back through the corridor of candlelight and whispers. No one saw me, no one cared. I slipped into the women's restroom and locked myself in a stall and finally let go. I didn't sob, didn't scream, just leaked hot tears sliding down frozen cheeks. Years of being the background character, of showing up and being told I was too much or not enough or just not invited. I cried for the 17-year-old me who decorated her first apartment alone. I cried for the 23-year-old me who was cropped out of the family Christmas photo. And I cried for the version of me that still believed maybe, just maybe, love would be enough to make me visible. I don't know how long I sat there, but eventually the tears slowed. I wiped my face with my coat sleeve, stood up, fixed my hair in the mirror, and walked back out. Not to blend in, not to be accepted, but because I deserved to walk through that party like I existed. Even if no one wanted to admit it, I passed through the kitchen again. The cake still sat where I left it, pristine, untouched. Like me, I removed the lid and stared at it. 3 layers of lemon and vanilla gold script that read, "To love, to laughter, to forever." A server glanced at me. "Ma'am, guests aren't, I'm just leaving," I said quietly. I didn't wait for him to finish. I walked out through the side door. Coat clutched around me, biting wind on my face. But somehow it hurt less than what I'd just heard inside. I reached my car, sat behind the wheel. The silence felt like glass. I looked down at my phone. 14 missed calls. None of them mattered. I powered it off, tossed it on the passenger seat, and drove. Not home, not yet. I found a roadside motel, paid in cash. Didn't leave my name that night. I slept in my closed TV, humming low in the background, waiting for the ache to dull. It didn't. But something shifted. Some part of me, the part that always waited to be chosen, finally stopped waiting. Morning came pale and sharp. I woke in a tangle of blankets and silence, the motel curtains swaying in the draft. The room still smelled faintly of buttercream and snow. The cake had made it to the party. I hadn't. My phone blinked on the nightstand. Messages, calls, notifications. But not one of them said, "Are you okay?" Instead, "You embarrassed Fiona. Why would you just leave the cake and disappear? You always make things about you." I scrolled numb. A message from a cousin I hadn't heard from in 2 years. She said you couldn't handle it. Then one from Mom in the family group chat. "She's been emotionally unstable lately. Just give her space." That was the story now, that I caused a scene, that I ruined. Fiona's big night, that I was too fragile, too dramatic. No one mentioned the 9-hour drive, the snowstorm, the cake, the laughter behind the kitchen wall. They didn't want to know why I left, because the truth was too inconvenient. By mid-morning, Fiona had posted a carousel of filtered party photos on Instagram. Her laughing with bridesmaids, her kissing Daniel under fairy lights, her smiling with Mom in matching faux fur shawls. The caption read, "A perfect night with all the people I love." I stared at it for a full minute. I wasn't in the photo, wasn't tagged, wasn't even a footnote. Then came a message from an old friend. "Hey, weren't you supposed to be there?" Fiona said. "You couldn't make it. Everything okay?" I didn't reply. Because I finally understood they didn't want me gone, they wanted me erased. So I did what I do best, I documented. I opened a folder on my desktop, Truth. I uploaded photos of snow-covered roads, the bakery receipt, the video of the untouched cake box through the window, screenshots of the text thread I was never meant to see, and the audio clip of that conversation in the service hallway. Then I opened Instagram, posted 3 images. The cake unopened, untouched, glowing under kitchen lights. My windshield after 9 hours in the storm. A selfie I took outside the estate. Wet hair, red cheeks, holding the cake box like a shield. The caption was simple. Sometimes you show up for people who wouldn't shovel your name off the sidewalk. Some things you do out of love. Some things teach you who deserves it. I turned off comments after 2 hours. Then I opened my Gmail. Attached the catering invoice. Subject line receipt. Fiona's engagement cake. No explanation, just attached is the receipt for the cake I paid for. The one that got left behind. Sent it to Mom, to Fiona, to Mallory. 5 minutes later, a reply came from Mom's email. 4 words. "This isn't helping, Harper." No apology, no explanation, just control as usual. But I wasn't 15 anymore, begging to sit at the grown-up table. I wasn't 22 waiting for someone to clap when I got my first job. I wasn't begging anymore. I was building a record. Because if they wanted to rewrite the story, I'd make sure the footnotes stayed intact. I opened another email. This time, I attached the chat screenshots, the Instagram post, and the audio file recipient, the PR department of Daniel's company. No caption, no context, just evidence. If he wanted to build a life on curated perfection, he deserved to know how it was made. I whispered to myself as I hit send, "This isn't revenge, this is accountability." Later that evening, as the sky darkened and fresh snow began to fall, my phone buzzed again, a text from Mallory. "You didn't hear it from me, but Daniel just postponed the dinner with his parents." Said something came up. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. I curled up on my couch, lit a candle, pulled the blanket over my knees, and exhaled. For once, I didn't feel like the storm. I felt like the break in the clouds. Saturday came dressed in sunshine, like nothing had broken. But the moment I stepped into Aunt May's house for family brunch, I felt it. that low hum of tension like static before a lightning strike. She greeted me with a squeeze on the shoulder and a whisper in my ear, "Don't let them make you small." Inside, everything was perfectly staged. White platters of melon slices, croissants, dusted with sugar. Too many people in cream sweaters pretending to be whole. I took a seat by the window, the seat furthest from the head of the table, where no one had to look me in the eye. If they didn't want to. Most didn't. Fiona stood at the far end, champagne flute in hand. The center of the story. As always, she tapped her glass, smiling like a politician. I just want to say she began words slow and sticky this week. Reminded me how important it is that we choose love over ego, especially in family. There it was. The dig wrapped in silk sharpened underneath. Someone laughed nervously. A few eyes darted toward me. I sipped my orange juice. Calm, composed. Then I stood up. "Mind if I say something too?" I asked Fiona. Blinked. Aunt May's fork froze midair. A hush spread across the table like fog. "I drove 9 hours in a snowstorm," I said, voice steady, with a handmade cake for my sister's engagement. I arrived soaked, exhausted, and invisible. No seat, no greeting, no space. Gasps, coughs into napkins. Fiona's face paled. And later I continued. I heard her laughing with a friend about how peaceful things might have been if I hadn't survived the drive. Mallory choked on her mimosa. Fiona's mouth opened, but I raised a hand not to silence her, just to hold the floor for once in my life. "You said you didn't mean for me to hear it," I said, "so let's make sure everyone does." I reached into my coat pocket, pulled out my phone, and tapped play. The laughter echoed across the room. Fiona's voice unmistakable. 9 hours for what? A pity cupcake, Mallory. What if she crashed? Imagine the sympathy. More laughter. I hit pause. Silence followed, but not the passive kind. The kind that cut. Daniel stared at Fiona like he didn't recognize her. My mother drained her wine. No one moved to defend them. Fiona stepped forward. Face flushed, eyes wide. "You twisted this," she hissed. I didn't move, didn't flinch. "You twisted it," I said. "The second you chose humiliation over honesty. You're making this ugly." I looked at her. Really looked. "I'm not making anything. I'm just done letting you rewrite the truth." She tried to talk over me, desperate to regain control. But I stayed calm, and then I muted her. I didn't hang up, I didn't yell. Just muted. 30 seconds of her mouth moving, hands waving, eyes wild. Then she noticed I wasn't reacting. I ended the call. No drama, just clarity. For once, she got to speak into silence. I turned to the table. I brought that cake out of love. I said I left it because I realized I wasn't bringing it to someone who saw me as family. Aunt May exhaled beside me. Long, slow, proud Fiona stood frozen, mascara smudging under her eyes. I didn't stay for dessert. I walked to the door. Aunt May followed and placed a hand gently on my back. She whispered, "You didn't just clear your name, you burned the whole script." And I didn't say a word because I didn't have to. Outside, the air was cool, crisp, weightless. And for the first time in years, I walked away without needing to look back. The silence followed me home. But this time, it wasn't loneliness. It was peace. I sat by the window that evening, watching snow puddle into slush under streetlights. No tears, no shaking hands, just quiet. The storm had passed, and I was still standing. The next morning, 3 notifications greeted me before I even got out of bed. First, a message from Monica, an old neighbor. "Did you hear engagement dinner's off? Daniel's parents asked to postpone." Their word, not mine. I stared at the screen. Didn't smile, didn't gloat, just breathed. Second, a vague Facebook status from Aunt May. "Truth burns at first, but if you let it, it sets you free." No names, no hashtags, but everyone reading it would know. Third, a photo from brunch. Me standing, phone in hand. Speaking, someone had posted it in the extended family thread with the caption, "Unhinged, attention-seeking." Just like always, I didn't respond. Didn't need to. That part of me, the girl who used to ache for explanation, who twisted herself into shapes for people who only saw shadows, she was gone. Later that day, I found an old journal in the back of my closet. Pages filled with teenage hope and scribbled apologies. One sentence stared up at me. "Maybe if I'm quieter, they'll love me louder." I tore the page out. Lit a match, watched it turn to ash in the sink. That girl didn't live here anymore. At sunset, my phone buzzed again. A message from Daniel. I'm sorry, you didn't deserve that. I heard everything. I regret not speaking up. It didn't fix anything, but it meant I wasn't crazy. An hour later, another message, this one from Mallory. I'm not proud of who I was that night. No follow-up, no excuse. But strangely, it hit harder than any insult she'd ever whispered. That night, I opened a draft I'd saved. Sometimes it takes a blizzard to see clearly. This is for anyone who's ever felt like too much. Just for existing. I didn't hit publish. Not yet, but I saved it because my voice didn't need a spotlight. Just space. I used to think speaking up would make me the villain. But silence. Silence is how they rewrite you. The week after the storm, I walked 2 blocks in the cold to the bakery near my apartment. The same place I ordered the cake no one touched. This time, I asked for something simple. White frosting, gold dust. No names, no message. Just peace. I brought it home, lit a candle on top, and sliced the first piece for myself. No toast, no tears, just me. Alive whole. Unapologetically here, outside the snow had melted. Puddles reflected clear skies above. Because not every ending needs to be loud. Some just need to be honest, and this one belonged to me. What did you think of this story if you were Harper? Would you have walked in? Would you have stayed silent? Or would you have spoken like she finally did? Tell me in the comments. And if you've ever been made to feel like too much just for existing, vote 2 in the comments. If you believe in stories that fight back with truth, subscribe to this channel, because here your voice belongs, and we see you always.